homework. We're looking at days 4 and 5 of week 3. And so we're going to start on page 43 in our books. So we're looking at remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. And the first thing she asked about it, what historical event is connected to the Sabbath when God gives that command?
Did you remember that was?
Okay, that's what the command is, but what historical event says such and such and such and such, therefore, creation. So, and then she says, why do you think that the Sabbath is connected to the creation story?
The Lord blessed that day and made it holy.
Exactly. And and then she says, and why not just tell us that we need to rest, you know? So what were some of the why answers? Why would God do that? We're on page 43. Well, I thought of a couple of things with that. Number one, God is giving us an example to follow, that he ceased from his work. So he's asking us to do something that he himself has done. But also, I think he wanted to remind us that this Sabbath principle isn't something new. It isn't something that he thought of for them after they came out of slavery. This was right from the very beginning. He incorporated that seventh-day rest right from when he was creating the world. All right, so that was one event, was creation. And then she had you look at Deuteronomy 5:15. And there was another event that was connected with the Sabbath. Therefore, remember the Sabbath day.
Delivered from slavery.
They were delivered from slavery. You remember that you were a slave in the land, and the Lord brought you out. Therefore, he's commanding you to keep the Sabbath. Okay. But even this wasn't the first mention to that generation. In the 3 months in which they've seen all the plagues and been delivered and made it to Mount Sinai, the Sabbath was mentioned twice in Exodus 16 and 21. What were they told to do so that they could rest on the seventh day?
He provided manna.
He provided manna, but
Twice
as much on the 6th day. Yeah. That way you can rest on the 7th day, because I'm going to give you what you're going to need on the 6th, and that day it's going to last. Any other day you try to double up and hoard, it's going to go bad on you, and you will be very sorry you did not obey me. But that day, I'm going to provide double, and it will last, and you can rest. Then down at the bottom, she asked you to rewrite this command. It's given as a positive, remember the Sabbath day. How do you rewrite that as a don't da-da-da-da-da?
Do not do as you always do.
That's right. Yep, don't just treat it as if it's just another day. Okay, we're not gonna make it common.
I have, do not work on the Sabbath, do not forget to honor the Lord.
Okay, don't forget to honor the Lord, because that is really the main point there. You're not working so that you have time to reflect on Him and not be distracted by work. And I think I had something else as another one. Don't work as if you are responsible to provide everything for your family. You know, remember that God is the provider, and that's another reason why you can rest on the Sabbath, because He will always provide enough so that you can rest when He wants you to rest. So there's several things, several different directions you could go with the don't in that. What lie do we tell ourselves when we break this command about the Sabbath?
The ox was in the ditch. I'm sorry, that's what my mom would always say.
Oh.
The ox is in the ditch, so you can work.
Yeah.
I'm serving God at my work.
Oh, okay. We can make excuses
Yeah.
for why it's okay
Yeah.
to do this, okay? Or we tell ourselves that God isn't able to provide. I've got to work. If I don't work Sundays, we're just not going to make it. You know, we tell ourselves those kinds of things, that God can't provide, and so we just have to. So like, again, the lies can vary, and, you know, depending on,
I think sometimes most times what I do, well, if I can just get this and this and this done, then I can concentrate
Yes.
okay,
on the Lord's work, so.
yeah. And actually, that might be an application, if you can do this, this, and this ahead of time. You know, that's the key, is can you plan ahead so that you can have that Sabbath rest? Because that is good, you know, to prepare ahead of time. But, just be careful, you don't get caught up in a Sabbath day rush to get Sabbath day rest. You know?
Quit being a Martha.
Yeah, would be a Martha. Just sit there like Mary and soak up the teaching, yeah.
There was a big punishment if you did, back in the ancient times. If you did any work on the Sabbath.
Oh,
Yeah.
then you never did any more work again.
Yes.
But, anyway, okay, so that brings us to the 5th commandment, honor your father and mother. And, from question number 31, in the hint, she says, what other parent-child relationship requires giving honor? And she had us look up Matthew 5:16, which says, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father in heaven. And I have to confess, I read that several times thinking, what on earth has that got to do with honoring your father and mother? And I thought, duh, it says to bring glory to your Father in heaven. That's the other relationship. It's interesting how you can read things, and you've always thought of that, let your light so shine. That's what I usually emphasize when I read that verse. So, but, okay, and then 32, a definition for honor, what I found was to show great respect for, or to treat with deference and courtesy. And by the way, we commented before you came, what a wonderful honoring of Vi was given yesterday. That was just a joy to be there for. So, again, she says this 5th commandment is given in a positive, do this. How would you rewrite it as a negative?
I said, do not ruminate over a parent's shortcomings.
Ooh,
That's
yeah.
what could come
Don't let that occupy your mind. Okay, good. How else?
Do not bring shame or disrespect to your parents by your attitude,
Oh,
words, or behavior.
yeah, don't bring shame on them. Don't treat them with contempt. If you're honoring them and showing them deference, that's just the opposite of, yeah, what do you know? You know, or neglect them. Some people neglect. I mean, there's a lot of different directions we can go. And which reminds us that there's a lot to this honoring parents. And what lie do we tell ourselves when we fail to obey this command?
The parents' actions or words are wrong.
Okay, they deserve it.
They deserve it.
Okay, or I'm my own authority. You can't tell me what to do because. Yeah, so showing that kind of disrespect. And I'm going to hold off on number 35, because Jen addresses this. Some people have parents that it's hard to show honor to.
Yes.
Because they have done wrong things, or there have been hurts, or an unresolved things. Maybe they're actually dead now, and so you can't ever make it right, you know? And I like what she says about that, so I'm just gonna wait and just let that be addressed by her. So let's go to the wrap up, and then we will go to the video. Again, what aspects of God's character, how did you fill in the blank? Knowing that God is something shows me that I am something. Any answers there?
God is sovereign. He expects me to respect his authority and those he chooses to place over me.
Okay. Anybody else have one? I had knowing that God is infinite in every way shows me that he is sufficient for all my needs. So. All right, so with that, we will go to the video. And I'll try to cue it up. Okay, down at the bottom, or the rest of that page 3 on your sheet, I have a couple of things that relate to 1 Peter. One is some parallel thoughts I found. So continuing on with this thought of bringing glory to our Heavenly Father, quoting again from Matthew 5, let your light shine before others so they can see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. Well, Peter says something very, very similar to that, not just once, but twice. In chapter 2, he says, keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day of visitation. Very, very similar thought there. And then again, he expands on that idea 2 chapters later when he says, as each one of you has received some spiritual gift, use it to serve one another, in order that, in everything, God may be glorified through Jesus Christ. So there's 2 different applications of that spiritual thing. So on your homework thing, I've told you to highlight those underlined phrases in blue on your 1 Peter printout. So I've given you the references there so that you can find them easily. So you don't have to do that in class, but you can do it at home. But then I also wanted to touch on something. You know, in that printout, there's a bunch of words that are highlighted in yellow. It's either obey or disobey, forms of those words. Well, something that Brenda Popovich shared in her lecture 2 weeks ago, I think it was now, she said that disobedience and unbelief are actually just 2 sides of the same coin. In fact, the same Hebrew word can be translated both ways. And it just kind of depends on the context or the translator's preference at any given point. Same Hebrew word. Sometimes they say unbelief, sometimes they say disobedience. And we can see that. If we don't believe God, why should we obey what he says? And, you know, so yeah, they're very closely tied. Well, I found that the same thing was true in the Greek, in the New Testament. There's a Greek word, apathio, and it's used to indicate willful and perverse, either disobedience or unbelief. And that word is what's used in 1 Peter 3:1 when it says, if any of you have husbands who do not, some versions say obey the word, others say do not believe the word. And it's also used in 4:20 of the wicked people of Noah's day that did not, who refused to obey or to believe God. There's another Greek word, that's the bad side, you know, the disobedience and unbelief. There's another Greek word that means just obedience. I don't know that it's ever translated belief, but it carries the idea of listening attentively to someone and paying heed. And that's the word that's used in 1 Peter 1:2 when it says that God has called us for obedience to Jesus Christ. So we'll listen attentively to him and heed what he says. That's our purpose. That's one reason why God called us. It's also used, where is it? Oh yeah, it's used of Sarah when it says, as Sarah obeyed Abraham, she listened attentively to him and heeded what he had to say. So that kind of gives us an insight as to what that positive obedience looks like. So, since belief and obedience are so closely tied, I've already highlighted all the obediences and disobediences. So what I'd like for you to do is to go through and highlight belief or unbelief every time you find it. And again, on your blue homework sheet, I've tried to make that easy for you. I've given you the references so you don't have to skim through all those pages to find that word. And a couple of you have NIV things, and so you'll have one more to mark than other people, because it was translated that way. Okay, so that just brings us to the last thing. I thought, I'd like to review the 10 Commandment signs again. We'll do it this way. We'll just go around and have each one of you do one sign, okay? And tell what the command is.
Oh, boy.
And, and if you forget, we can all jump in and help. So we want to show the sign, we want to give a command, we want to tell what that tells us about God. So Teresa, let's just start with you.
Great.
Or do you want to do volunteers? I can do volunteers, that's all right.
Just go to this
Okay.
page right here.
All right,
I have only one God,
okay,
and that means that we're to just worship Him. He's the only person
okay.
that.
He is the only God.
Yes.
Okay, all right, good, all right, yeah,
Okay, no graven image.
okay, okay,
Again, meaning there's only one true God,
yeah.
no other, so.
No other like him. He's
And not make
limitless.
an image of what we think God is.
Right, we will misrepresent him. Okay,
Okay, 3.
yeah,
Word,
yeah,
we will not take the name of the Lord in vain,
okay,
and that just shows their dishonor to him.
okay. We want to honor the Lord. He's worthy of our praise. And we don't want to misrepresent him in any way. Okay,
I have 4, which is to honor the Sabbath,
okay,
and that's what we talked about today. and
Right.
it's not to make other people work on the Sabbath,
Okay.
and that it's used to worship him.
right. And it tells us that God is sufficient, that he's our provider. We don't have to work on the Sabbath because he provides for us. Okay,
Honor thy mother and thy father.
okay. And what does that tell us about God?
That we should honor and obey.
Him as
Yeah.
well, and that he is the source of all authorities. Okay,
Don't murder.
okay, yep, yeah,
Just don't murder, don't, there's no.
Right.
No reason.
and and why not? Because God is the life
He gives,
giver.
we need.
He's not, he never intended to take life. He's the life giver, okay?
Thou shalt not commit adultery.
Okay,
God made man and woman, and the marriage vows are till death do you part, and not to, I forgot the word, your marriage bed.
yeah,
To follow your marriage bed.
but also it tells us God himself is faithful, always faithful. So we want to remember that each one of these commands not only tells us something to do that's good, and we should, and it will make for much better relationships if everybody does, but it also teaches us something about God. Okay.
Thou shalt not steal.
Okay.
God's our provider.
Okay.
I can't think of anything else.
That everything, he's the creator, so he's the one that owns it all,
Want to know.
So you're really stealing from him, okay?
Okay, this is a hard one for me because I'm like, okay, don't bear false witness. This
That's-
is whispering all over the place. I'm telling people about the.
Right,
Because God is truth.
that's right, absolute truth. So that leaves number 10 for me.
Okay.
Is don't covet what other people have, because God is sufficient, he's enough. Okay, we did it.
We're
All right.
old, but we can do it.
Does anybody have a verse or verses you've been working on that you're brave enough to use?
I-
All right, go for it.
This is Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For art thou with me, thy rod and thy staff that comfort me. Thou preparest a table for me in the in the presence of thine enemy. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Amen.
All right.
It just flowed.
Good. And that's encouraging, you know, we want to share, it's like Brenda says, we want this class to be a tool.
Yes.
You know, to give you tools that will help you. And next week, anybody else have one that you want to share? Otherwise, we'll try again next.
Genesis 2:7.
Okay.
And the Lord God formed man out of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And became a living soul.
Right.
I think I got it.
Yeah, you did. That was the same version I had, so you got one? All right.
Lord, you have been our refuge throughout the generations. Before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the whole world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God.
That's beautiful.
And what verse is that?
Psalm 91:2.
Okay. Well, very good. All right, well, we'll just keep plugging away, so some of the rest of you can maybe share some next week. And next week, we will look at another tool. Actually, it's gonna be like a game board. So I'll bring that in. We'll look at it online, but we will also have one that you can use at home.